We've got this double murder in Australia that has now become international news because of Taylor Swift. Let me explain. Right, so one morning, early last week, gunshots were heard at the home of former TV presenter Jesse Baird in Sydney, with an emergency call reportedly made 4 minutes later from the phone of his partner, Luke Davies. But that call was ended before it could reach an operator, and the neighbors didn't report the gunshot sound until days later, at which time police had already found discarded bloody clothes and launched a missing person probe. When they searched Baird's home, they found both him and Davies missing. But this also as there was a lot of blood and upturned furniture, so they know something bad had happened. And according to police sources, Baird had actually told friends that he would wake up in recent months to find a shadowy figure at the end of his bed, who then fled from the house. But for whatever reason, he didn't report it to police at the time. And actually, last Friday, the killer turned himself in, with 28-year-old Beau Lamar Condon, who, as we now know, had some sort of romantic connection or infatuation to Baird, with there being conflicting reports on whether they were actually dating or if Lamar Condon was making unrequited advances. Very notably, he was actually a serving police officer in New South Wales, with the detectives matching ammunition found at the crime scene to his Glock service pistol, which was allegedly returned to a locker at a police station after being fired. But reportedly, Lamar actually signed out the gun 3 days before the murders, claiming that it was for protest activity, though it's unclear whether he actually worked at that event. But regardless, he was charged with 2 counts of murder and he didn't bother applying for bond. So then with that, the second phase of the investigation kicks off, finding the body. And it's during this part that New South Wales Police Commissioner Karen Webb comes into the mix. Right, first off, some criticized her for describing the murders as a crime of passion rather than a hate crime. Though to be fair there, it doesn't right now appear to have been motivated by bigotry, since the suspect himself had some sort of romantic connection or infatuation to Baird. But then you had more criticism hitting the commissioner for taking so long to speak publicly about this, because she waited 3 whole days after Lamar turned himself in to hold her first press conference.
3 days to speak? Come on.
It's still a live investigation. As I said, it's very complex.
But they're saying that she was busy, that she had parliamentary budget estimates on Friday, public engagements on Saturday, and a personal meeting with Baird's family on Sunday. But then, as far as the third criticism, many have called it inexcusable. And that's because she went on 7's Sunrise program to talk about the search. And there, when asked about her alleged mishandling of the case, she responded,
"But there will always be haters. Haters like to hate. Isn't that what Taylor says?"
And so with that, you had an LGBTQ advocacy group calling her response disgusting and appalling, with a member of parliament speaking for many when he told reporters,
"When a commissioner of police starts quoting Tay-Tay in the middle of a very serious murder investigation involving one of her own officers, that says it all."
With Webb also refusing to leave the studio for 10 minutes because a news crew was waiting outside. Though at least taking some of the heat off her, you had police announcing that they had finally found the bodies today, with the 2 reportedly wrapped in surfboard bags and hidden under rocks and debris on a rural property. And that discovery coming after the killer directed the police on where to find the remains. So in the wake of all of this, we've seen multiple reactions, some people grieving, others angry at the cops for several different reasons. Right, the first being Karen Webb's alleged mishandling of the case. Second, there being doubts about the competency of the police, whether they would have found the killer or the bodies had the killer not confessed everything to them. And then third, being the concerns around whatever procedures enabled Lamar Condon to sign out a pistol and murder 2 people with it off duty. Which, if you're an American, you might be like, well, why that? But in Australia, this is kind of a rare fuck up, because handgun ownership there is much more highly restricted than over here in good old America. And I mean, this case is such an outlier that this is the first suspected murder carried out by a New South Wales police officer in decades. And kind of touching on how shocking all this was for the community, this is also going to be the first time in over 2 decades that the police will be excluded from Sydney's Mardi Gras parade, which is Australia's premier LGBTQ event and something that the police have taken part in every year since 1998. But the events board asked the police not to march in it this Saturday, explaining this decision was not made lightly, especially considering that many NSW police members who participate in the parade are also members of the LGBTQIA+ community and are navigating the impact of this tragedy alongside us. However, we believe that their participation at this year's event could intensify the current feelings of sorrow and distress